All right. So here's a conversation you've probably heard, and you probably said some things or some version of it yourself. I'd be happy, or I will be happy when I hit a $500,000, or I'll be happy when I finally clear those seven figures, or I'll be happy when the business finally runs without me, man. I'll be happy when I find the right partner. I've heard all these different conversations. Fill in your own blank right now. You already know what yours is. And here's what I want to do with it. I want you to flip it back on yourself the way that I typically will flip it around on clients. Because when I hear this kind of stuff, if I'm hearing it out in the public, I think about it in myself. But if I have a client that actually says something like this, it's actually the other way around. You're probably gonna hit that number when you are actually happy, right? Or fill in whatever language you want there. But people usually laugh the first time I say it back to them, and then they're going to get quiet. And here's why. Because here's what's actually happening when you say, I'll be happy when. You've made happiness a destination that's waiting on the other side of an achievement, which means right now, today, you've given yourself permission to be unhappy. And as long as you can be unhappy as long as you're working toward that thing, and then the achievement becomes a hostage situation. You won't let yourself feel good until it shows up. But when you flip it, right? I'll hit the number when I'm actually happy. Now happiness isn't the reward at the end, it's the engine. It's the thing that's actually going to produce clearer decisions, better energy, stronger relationships, more attractive leadership, the actual conditions that tend to produce the result that you actually are chasing. So, you do all this, you're going to stop waiting on the goal to give you the feeling, and you start letting the feeling drive you toward the goal. I'm Spencer Combs, the Defiant Coach. I've spent over 20 years coaching entrepreneurs and high performers to break through the ceilings, keeping them from their full potential. And I wrote the book on it, literally, Momentum and Mastery. And this is Spencer Uncensored, episode 119. It's the second deep dive in our Drift to Drive series, because last week we talked about the dream, the very first factor. And today, we go into the second factor, specifically desire. It's a requirement to create movement. It's a requirement. It's one of four that creates drive. And that little reversal that we were just talking about, you'll hit it when you're happy, not you'll be happy when you hit it, is really the whole episode in just one sentence. So we're going to unpack this together, though. Here's the distinction underneath it. And it's foundational to the book. Momentum and Mastery talks about means goals versus end goals, right? So think like a means to an end. When we're talking about a means goal, that is actually a vehicle. It's the thing you think will get you to the feeling you're actually after, right? So things like more revenue, a bigger title, a nicer house, more followers even, right? Those aren't bad things to want. They're just not the actual target. They're the vehicle that's supposed to deliver you to something else. Usually it is a feeling. We actually go into these conversations in our core program. It's an immersive program where we elicit what we call a hierarchy of values. Things like security or significance. Maybe you're driven by freedom, right? I'll feel more free when I have this kind of bank account. That freedom is what's actually going to cause you to go create that bank account. It doesn't require the bank account to create the emotion. Maybe you're about peace. I don't know, but it's a feeling. It's a sense of something. Now, an end goal is the feeling itself. And happy, right? In that sentence, we always hear on a regular basis, I'll be happy when, is almost always somebody's end goal wearing a means goals clothes. Say that 5 times fast. The 500,000 isn't what they actually want. The happy is what they want. So the seven figures is just the thing they've decided has to come first. Well, here's the problem. And it's fairly universal too, because most people never identify their end goal. They just keep chasing means goals, assuming that if they get enough of them, the money, the stuff, enough revenue, the recognition, the business that's operating on its own, the feeling will eventually show up on its own. So they hit the number. They get that title. They cross the finish line, whatever they're after, the one they've been chasing for years. And then all of a sudden, the feeling doesn't seem to show up. Or it shows up for about a day and then it's gone. And they're already setting a next number. Why is that? Well, it's because their actual science behind it, and I think it matters that you understand the mechanism, not just the symptoms. Uh, Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist at Stanford, if you ever, you got to have a special personality to really listen to all of it. But if you're really interested in that kind of thing, he's talked extensively about how dopamine works in the brain. Dopamine is the molecule most responsible for craving and desire. That's a key word today. For wanting something before you even have it. And here's what explains the empty feeling. Every time you experience a peak of dopamine, like hitting the goal, getting the win, the moment of achievement, your baseline level of dopamine actually drops afterward. Not because something went wrong, because that's how the molecule is built to work. The bigger the peak, the more the floor drops out from under you right after. Interesting. If you want to go deeper into the neuroscience, I'll just drop the link for his episode on dopamine and motivation in the description. But here's the practical takeaway for today. If you are only chasing means goals, the thing, you are biologically guaranteeing yourself a crash after every single win. That's not a mindset problem you can think your way out of, ladies and gentlemen. That's chemistry, which is exactly why finding your actual end goal, the feeling underneath the goal, not the goal itself, matters so much. The end goal is the thing you can actually arrive at and rest in for a while. The means goal is just a hit that fades and then sends you looking for the next one. This is what we call in the book, I call it the enough game. Getting what you want and wanting what you have are two completely different skills. So most people only ever develop the first one, right? Getting what you want. They get very good at acquiring. They never get good at arriving. I'm going to say that again. You will get good at acquiring, but you don't get good at arriving because you never defined what was arriving or what arriving was even supposed to feel like. So you just keep moving the number, assuming the feeling is one more achievement away, and it never is. If you take a moment and think about it, you can create a very simple idea of what you really want. Here's a simple exercise for you. What would you like to see happen in the next 6 months? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say that? Write that down. And then what would you like to see happen in the next 3 years? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Write that down. And then what's a big goal that you've always wanted or you've always talked about having, doing, experiencing, a bigger someday type dream goal? Write that down. And when you write down those 3 things, then I want you to, those are probably going to be means goals. It's not bad to have them. But if you want to unpack or figure out I'm giving you a shortened version of what we actually do in our programs like Unshakable Weekend event. Take those 3 things you just wrote down and then ask yourself, what would I have, or it would, when I achieve X, Y, and Z, it would give me a sense of what? In 6 months when I do this thing, when I get this thing, or I do this thing, I achieve this thing, it gives me a sense of what? Same for the 3 years, same for the someday. And when you write those three things down and then you give yourself those three end goals, those are probably values and they're probably a hierarchy also. Meaning, in your mind, the way your blueprint is set up is that the first one has to happen before you can have the second one, and the second one has to happen before you can have the third one. It may not make sense a lot to you right now, but I would love to hear from you guys if you actually sat down and did that for yourself real quick. You're going to find out that I don't necessarily have to have one to get to two to get to three. What would I need to start doing, or how do I find, and we give exercises for this on how to actually impregnate your life with these values with where you are right now. And then you use the value, you use the end goal to actually drive for the means goal. So take whatever you've been telling yourself, I'll be happy when, right? Go back to the dream you expanded last episode and find your version of that sentence and then flip it. Now, the way I flip it in all the coaching conversations, say it loud, flipped. I'll get the business that runs without me when I build the systems that make me the kind of person who doesn't need to control everything. Ooh, right? I'll have a better, more, I'll have more freedom. So use your freedom to generate the kind of business that you want. I'll get the relationship when I become the kind of person who isn't anxious and scarce. Ooh. Yeah, I learned that one, by the way, the hard way with relationships. See, we don't get what we want, we get who we are. We don't get what we want, we get who we are. Just notice what happens to the goal when you stop holding it hostage. That's the actual desire underneath everything you've been chasing. And once you can see it clearly, the dream from last week and the desire from this week start to pull in the same direction instead of against each other. So if you'll go to momentumandmastery.com and grab a copy of the book, go ahead. You can do that over at momentumandmastery.com. The full desire chapter is in there, including the means goals versus end goals framework in a bit more depth. Right now it's free plus shipping. So you can just go over there and pay. It's like $11 or something, and we get it sent out to you. And then you can also take the free Defiant assessment at unshakablesecrets.com. It's 3 to 5 minutes. It'll show you exactly where cultural gravity has the most leverage over your business right now. Subscribe, please, if you haven't yet. Thank you for hanging out with us this far. I trust it was useful for you. Hit the button below. Share it with someone that maybe they need to hear about this too. Because next week, we're going to go into the third factor, disturbance, probably one of my favorite topics, especially when on a show called Spencer Uncensored. I think it might be the one that gets the most watched anyway, because disturbance is the activation moment. It's where the gap stops being something you tolerate and starts being something you finally act on. So I'm Spencer Combs, the Defiant Coach. Stay defiant, and I'll see you next Wednesday.